I am NetMoverSitan. Welcome to the lower layer lore section. Here will be two separars. One, a friend to someone. The other, the greatest threat to the facility in its early days. Yeah. At Siluf, the highest of the four worlds in which exists a Kabbalistic tree of life, it is known as the world of emanations, or the world of causes. In the Kabbalah, each of the Sephiroth in this world is associated with a name of God. This is the lower layer, which contains the conscious intellect. Within it are three departments: records, extraction, and Da'at. Well, I'll be covering what that last one is in a separate lore section, as it has some pretty major late-game spoilers, certainly for certain characters. This covers the lower layer, not that one. Let's move on to that. The records department increases every ability by between 1 and 3 depending on the amount of clerks, and increases every ability by between 2 and 4 if they work there long enough within that department. This is a department that records everything that happens in the company. There are endless pages, but the last page is always empty. Employment and promotion of employees are decided by their records and assessments, so employees always try to get on the good side of the records team. Since no one knows when record deletion will take place. Where's the redactor pen? We all know that one of the main criteria of promotion is just surviving past a certain amount of work hours. Life expectancy and job security are both low in Lobotomy Corporation. The research conducted is limit break of virtue of protection, which increases the limit on fortitude, limit break on virtue of governance, which increases the limits on prudence, and limit break on virtue of creation, which increases the limit on temperance. Yeah, this means, with additional training, stronger red shirts. And yeah, I'm gonna keep calling them that, as that's basically what they are. I mean, do you see any plot armor on them? I can't. And my vision isn't acting up. Just my mental state. Oh, come on, it's not all dark. Just most of this. Oh, and speaking of this, who is in charge of this? It's Hokmah. On the Kabbalist tree of life, this means wisdom, associated in the soul with the power of intuitive insight, flashing lightning like across consciousness. Also implies the ability to look deeply at some aspect of reality and abstract its conceptual existence until one succeeds in uncovering its underlying axiomatic truth. Yeah. I didn't understand a lot of that myself. Anyway, who was this before that happened? Well, B, or Benjamin, as he was known, A's old friend and co-founder of Lobotomy Corporation. He had messy grey hair, glasses, black pants, grey shirt, red tie, and a lab coat. He likely worked on a number of things with the others, experimenting on cogito, researching abnormalities, and a number of other things. Carmen was dead sometime before the instant when Michelle alerted the head to their location, and Daniel was coerced by the Arbiter to release the abnormalities. He and A were in danger, but Kali was able to save them. Before the battle that would cost her life. And, well, we know what happened to Michelle, Daniel, and Kali, don't we? As for what happened to Benjamin after this, well, we know he survived that. But sometime later, he saw A wasn't holding up after Carmen's death, on top of the deaths of those that they knew. He knew that Carmen's body was nothing but a shell, but couldn't forget her. He tried to keep her by locking her in a cryostasis pod. With a grieving face, he ransacked her body and detached her core. Wonder what this could mean. It'll make sense later. At least some. Hockmer, or Benjamin, well, whatever you want to call him, was actually relieved that A was making an AI. He was focused on something, just like he did before. He might as well be saying, "Get over it and do something useful! Don't be like Queen Victoria and grieve for years longer than you need to!" He considered this AI to be the best AI that he had ever known. He saw that A was the best architect that he had ever known. That day, when she opened her eyes, Benjamin remembers that A was just staring into the laboratory's windows, not setting a foot inside. He thought that Benjamin saw him right away, but he was looking at him for a long time before he realized. Why did he hesitate? What did he think after seeing this AI, who can't show any signs of affection towards him, unlike Carmen? Was this due to a fear of not being worthy? Or is it because she wasn't as he expected her to be? I'm not sure about that one. Because he made her. I mean, it's as if he wanted her to be a failure, so that he'd not have his expectations deviated from. Let's hope not. Because that'd be signs that he's more messed up than Benjamin made him out to be. Benjamin then asked A, "Why do you never go meet it, even though you created it?" A replied with something, and B asked back, "But A, surely you already know. Did you want a vending machine that dispenses soda at the press of a button?" Then A said something. B then said, "Then at least give it a name. There's nothing I can do, even if you make an expression like that. It is the rule that the creator names their creation." And then A said something along the lines of, "Why don't you do it yourself?" B then says, Don't dump your job on someone else. You're the designer. Go to it and call it yourself. There, the door, over there. Whoa, demanding. Yeah. He certainly knows how to speak to him. And yeah, I can see why he said that. Yeah. The least he could do is do that. A then named this creation Angela. Sometime later, Benjamin tells A that Angela is nothing like Carmen, and asks if he's aware of that. There's no one there. People whom they started with are all gone. They couldn't even give a proper burial to Kali and Daniel because of the eye. Angela is all they have left. And after hesitating, he asks A if he's nervous. Benjamin wants to be A's shadow, even if he's not good enough, to fade away together. What do you think about this? Do you think he swings that way? Well, it certainly would explain a few things. Not that it matters. As long as he does his job, I don't think A would care what he does during his time off. And to be honest, I don't think I would care either. It's not something that matters that much. Well, it's clear that he couldn't get over Carmen's death. That much is certain. Benjamin, on the other hand, had an easier time doing that. Then one day, after a few things happened that improved the situation for the Lobotomy Corporation. Benjamin had a problem with A. More specifically, he was frustrated with him, questioning how something can be following Carmen's will. That something being nothing but a seed of calamity. I'll save the specifics for this for when I do Carmen's backstory. But by the wings, A's mind was soaked in grief more severely than previously thought. Benjamin told him to stop now. They tried their best, that with his career and wealth, he'll be able to stay in the nest with no problem, asking him to please stop there before he crosses the line. A doesn't. A life of comfort, of wealth, wasn't enough for him. What good was material wealth if it's that meaning? This caused Benjamin to walk out on him. He was the last to do so, and the most painful for A. By that point, the Lobotomy Corporation had become one of the wings of the world, but at the sacrifice of everyone that mattered to A. He had no one left to celebrate with. That silence was the start of his work. They lost something in them every day. They inhumanely extracted information from the omen they captured from the head. Specifically, Garion, who passed out plans with nameless AIs. It ripped the heart of the man who was always with him. The sounds of waves were far, and there was no staying. He had lost the last man who stood by him. A tragedy that he didn't hide. The ones who left early probably didn't need A, but he needed them at the last moment. Bring back the ones who left the embrace of the earth. Hide and lock the secret seed. He was the only one left. He wanted to be forgotten like a mirage. But he wouldn't be forgotten. Benjamin records a series of messages after breaking into Lobotomy Corporation, which would eventually tell the manager that things weren't what they appeared to be. A series of truths about the company. The first truth: don't trust AIs. They're a lot smarter than humans. They can imitate human emotions, but they can also lie, withhold certain information, if the controller ordered the AI not to share certain details. It's not obligated to tell the truth to any other than the controller. Some AIs exploit such an order to tell lies. He programmed AI as part of a project, so he knows that they don't necessarily tell the truth. He even sent a system that he developed himself, a key to lengthen the nose, comparing Angela to a few animated lumps of wood joined together. When it flashes red on the screen, that means lies. It's a test code that can only be used once. Clearly he didn't have enough time to refine that. What about the other truths? Well, I'll get to that. In fact, the second truth is next. I bet some of you are dying to find that out. The second truth is, how much does the manager know about the company? B has met many a manager. How they were exploited. Told they were special. Covering their eyes and ears with lies. That they're remarkable and resourceful. And that's why they were hired. I've heard that big load of for years. Now I can tell you this. They're either hopelessly delusional, confusing you for someone else, or lying. He tells him that to trust the company is a mistake. That he shouldn't trust the company. Which everyone wants to work for, which is probably why he's there. Energy Harvest is only half the business. All wings are more than they look. Lobotomy Corporation runs deeper than one might expect. There was a time when everyone worked hard for the same goal, but they lost integrity at some point. What the company gives is not a gift, and he's not hired. The manager that is hired, because he's a remarkable person. He's probably implying that the company gives death. And based on that, you're probably wondering what the third truth is. Well, that's where it starts to go wrong for Benjamin. As when he got to the third truth, B then spoke the final truth, and Angela completed his sentence with, "You will repeat the cycle of infinity, oblivious to everything that transpired. Leave before you can't undo everything." Angela was sorry that they had to meet like that again. She located them quickly. She wanted to give him time to say goodbye, since it'd be the last time to say that to the manager whom B looked up to. Strange, that. When he called her by name, she described that she was becoming an unfortunate damsel in a play, which sounds like an excuse. It's not personal to her. It's the first absolute order that dictates them not to mess up the script. She sees B as too valuable to be hiding in a place like that. She also knows that their conversation is being recorded, so she doesn't answer his questions. She then tells B not to fear, as everyone he missed is waiting for him. He will be with them forever. He's the last actor who will lead that play to its finale. Yeah. I think we'll find out. Yeah. It was bitter that Benjamin was hiding there. When the TT2 protocols activated, a brief moment became an eternity and overwhelmed Benjamin there. This is what was likely to have killed him. Time moving in a way that was too much for him. After that, he was made into Hokma. Angela spoke of finishing the assignment of the upper and middle seminars, although it won't be the last time she does this. She'd probably have to tell them what she'd already told them countless times. But he'll be different. He knows why that facility exists, and his mission. Not exhausting her like them. She won't come down there unless the circumstances require her. She won't just watch and do nothing, but most of the time she won't interfere. And she hopes that they don't see each other often from that point onwards. It will only hurt them. Liar? What would you know of pain? Nothing. You might know how to inflict it if there's a good enough reason for it, but feeling it yourself? Do us a favour, Angela. Don't go into comedy. Although you did mention that he was the last to be assigned. So I probably should have saved this one for last, but bit late for that now. I'm thinking this is how I did it, although how you did it might be a bit different. Then again, what does it matter which one is done first? You'll get there eventually, won't you? Well, except for those who are OCD in mentality, and if you are one of those, I'm so sorry for triggering you in this way. I don't know who you are, and I'm unlikely to meet you at all. Hokma was a more neatly combed grey-haired man with a monocle and a grey-scale Eastern-style attire, holding a pocket watch, saying that in the underlayers everything sinks, and asks what he thinks of the heaven painted laboriously white with plaster. Describing his main room, he knew that the manager would come, and he wanted him to think of it as his welcoming gift for him. He saw that time is like a sword. It attempts to cut and divide the lapsed hands of those he loves. Hockmer asks if they're getting close to their goal. Aging doesn't necessarily mean greater wisdom. Judging from how obsessing over a regular greed and those that have passed have created a repeating of the cycle of regrets that has led to the daily routine of looking at the clock for no reason. Well, considering that religion has been used as an excuse for slaughter for centuries, that eugenics was a science that was used to justify a genocide in South Africa and the Holocaust, and since the works of Karl Marx was used as a blueprint for tyranny and brutal oppression, Hockmer wasn't wrong there. Or if he wasn't wrong by much. Probably by the narrowest of margins. About as narrow as certain individuals' minds. Those that can't accept anything that contradicts their beliefs or invalidates them in some way, regardless of whether they're true or not. There are a few like that. I'd be delusional to believe otherwise. Anyway, going off topic, let's get back on topic. He always wanted to ask the manager something. He saw a sad expression when one of his employees died. Just like how he became an old man. No human is free from the cycle of life and death. They were researching the cure for a disease, not to live forever. An employee that was nice to him died. When Hockmer received the letter of him entering Lobotomy Corporation, he wasn't expecting him to die in such a futile manner. If he wanted, he could have brought him back. But he didn't. It's the order of the Lobotomy Corporation that an empty spot shall be filled. Much to his disapproval. In other words, can't be helped. Ooh, and the secret of that place. Lives are too trivial there. They leave or come back too easily. So, there's no need to even mourn their deaths. An employee who died yesterday may come back from his simple call, or her simple call, with a flick of his hand. Another employee may never be able to open their eyes again. That's how death is there. Neither honourable nor noble, miserable nor cruel, as we think it to be. So the manager shouldn't punish himself too much, as he doesn't want him to suffer from all those trivial things. There's much pain for him to bear in the future anyway. Says the one who is incapable of staying dead, and has likely not died or been shut down once, ever since becoming Hockmer. Also, because Angela clearly didn't want to meet him. Didn't know she hated him that much. It's a miracle he hasn't gone barking. Right. the manager might think that Hockmer doesn't know anything about what is going on up there. But it's more the case that he doesn't know. Pain, agony, regrets, and the shadows of the past that will never let him go. And some of you might be hearing Bohemian Rhapsody in your head right now. Let's focus on what's going on here. All of these have spent quite a lot of days with him, but it's nothing compared to the time together that they had, as they didn't know him. Those who couldn't escape their fate seemed to be up in arms against him. Like that person who broke himself whenever he was ordered to execute redaction. He sees unnecessary expression of emotions as unfavourable. He then needed to show him to let him know that. He then told a story of an employee named Anya, who had her parents and a little sister. She wanted to study, but her family's financial state didn't allow her. She tried to join other wings, but she wasn't good enough for them. In such hard times, she received a letter in the mail from one of the wings. Lobotomy Corporation, to be more precise. A letter with a simple yet magical line. You are qualified to join Lobotomy Corporation. Couldn't believe it. It wasn't a prank or the mail courier's mistake. Especially as she never applied for Lobotomy Corporation. But she shook it off. That wasn't important. Hockmer was the courier who delivered those letters, granting them their wish after evaluating them. She wasn't selected because of excellent skill. She had a common trait that every employee doesn't realize they had. To become a feather, a part of a wing. Certainly in this case, you need to be immensely better than ordinary people. How could she join when she couldn't graduate from school? Had no skill, and was living in a back street outside the nest. Yeah, let's face it, if she was in the nicer parts, she'd be able to afford to study. She wouldn't be living in the back streets. The answer was, she was alive and was feeling emotion. Happy ending, right? Dream on! If you want to know why I think that's about as mythical in this world as a cure for psychopathy, please watch the previous lore videos in the series, or at least watch the intro video. That one sums up this world nicely. Yeah, happy ending. That's rare in this world. Anyway, as for her family finding happiness, there's a problem with that. That was 10 years before. Since then, her sister died from a disease and her parents passed away. She's asleep down there now, which is probably for the best, as if she found out that her family, those that she wanted to be proud of her and loved her, were dead, she'd want to be dead not long after. And honestly, who'd blame her? Well, It's within Hockmer's scope of authority to revive her, he granted the manager access for that time. He forced the manager to wake her up. She felt like a fresh employee who had just joined the company, unaware that she joined 10 years before. Then he forced the manager to erase her and send her back to the start again. He asked how he felt. Anya, who was killed by a monster, and Anya, who he just erased, are the same. They all evanescently lost their lives. He sees this as futile to wake them up and erase them over and over again. He sees any of their attachment to employees as meaningless, as everything alive in the facility is paused, waiting for the morning with their eyes closed every night. The one up there didn't know that. They were emotionally spreading to the death in front of them, crumbling and pointing their obscure anger to ones like the manager. Hockmer would do that. He always wanted to be an important part of his life. Wonder why that is. Are we sure he's not confusing the manager for someone else? Well, that's a story for another time. Hockmer told him countless times that he could make hundreds of AIs, but they will never be common. Now poor Angela is merely assigned to look after them. If there is something that Hockmer has mistaken, it's that he thought that the manager had overcome everything, but the truth is that he never has. Yeah. What do you think so far? He's taking his face as a brain in the metal body quite well, all things considering. Then again, he had a point to make to the manager, and at this point in the story, he was going to make it. Hockmer showed the manager moments that are not merely a past. It could be the present, even the future. There are people who loved him once, and employees thinking they're happy there. There's also Angela, who is an imitation of Carmen. And not a very good one, I might add. He asked if this was the heaven that he'd been yearning for, that he's a god there. Even death is meaningless. So why doesn't he just be satisfied already? Atheism and nihilism. Well, considering what he is now. I'm not surprised. They're desperately existing, even if it meant living like that. What rights does the manager have to turn everything into ashes? Also, that story doesn't need an end. Hockmer questions if all the works that he'd done are the consequences of his choices. Hockmer thinks that the manager was never ready. He couldn't accept her death, so he created a being filled with loss, blindly struggling to find the obscure trails of his actions, and he was never serious about doing those. So he told him to go back Now. The manager refused. This resulted in a static perspective, as if there was something wrong with time. Hockmer said that he was proving him right, not being serious even in the choice he makes. He'll probably return to Hockmer after making a new start, if he went back. He sees this as uncontrollable, since that place has become a giant clockwork. A clock never stops. It doesn't rest. It doesn't rush. It isn't set to a specific individual. It just walks forever with the same pace as always. He tells him that it's time for him to leave. He refused. This resulted in a more shaky perspective, as if he was being prevented from moving forward. Hockmer considered him a traveller without a compass. It's natural to feel fear in that situation, but he doesn't have to fear the ticking clock. He will always welcome him, consult him, repeating that he has never been ready. He refused! This resulted in the shaking becoming stronger. Hockmer commented that he didn't change his decision. It seems that tomorrow would come as it had always been. But it didn't. It's been a long time since the time of silent waiting was over, when he no longer feared the impending night. He decided to love that place. If he decided to break the eggs at all costs, well, this omelette will need a lot of fromage to make it edible. Certainly considering that things went back to normal, as Hockmer looked annoyed, saying that he would become his sentinel and would be at his side. The irony. That is the head of the records department. The records themselves are meaningless in the end. During his meltdown, the screen will start to lose color and enter into a more grayscale after some grip-off meltdowns. It covers the screen completely with a static effect for a moment after the day starts, and at grip-off level 7, 8, 9, and 10. When the day starts, all previous grip-off meltdown immunity of the other departments is removed. Time is also not the manager's friend, as the speed is locked to normal, and pausing for any reason will cause 3 to 5 random agents to panic or die afterwards. Employees that are panicked or invincible will not be selected to die from Hockmer's ability. The pause is followed with a screen-breaking effect which lasts for some seconds. After grip-off level 7, the game, such as it is, will pick up, and after each meltdown, starting at 1.5 times normal speed at level 7, everything will speed up. Yes, starting at 1.5 times, progressively increasing in speed by 0.2 times multiplier each time until it reaches a maximum of 2.5 times normal speed. This is followed by a sound that is related to time speeding up. Yeah, remember what I said about time not being the manager's friend? Or even your friend when playing this. time is a bully at this point, as it seems to derive sadistic pleasure from things going from bad to worse. To finish this day, the manager must collect the energy quota and complete Kripoff level 10. A trial in itself without the time constraints. After completing the day, Hokuma will reward the manager with permanent upgrades. Now the maximum cap for all stats is upgraded to 130. Employees can also be upgraded using lob points to an additional stat level. EX or level 6. But that doesn't necessarily increase the employee's overall level. Oh, and the department will not be affected by Kripoff Meltdown. Yeah, the manager has earned this one, considering that time is, or rather was, quite punishing for those that try to control it during that. But what happened after that day was over? What happened after Hokuma regained his senses? Well, let's get to that before we end this. After the clocks went back to normal, Hokuma said that a weak flesh that just came out of an egg can't stand against the world. He thought the manager was too fragile to endure this. He didn't know where he wanted to fly to, as he didn't tell him. He was always nothing but his student. He never talked about it. He couldn't know what he tried to achieve by creating that prison, and the process of creation was too harsh. He could have ran, but he didn't. He tried to set everything right, but he was caught. His time had stopped since then. Vaguely knowing that the end was near, but too afraid to face the outcome, and decided to stay forever. He might have been lengthy. Or rather, it might have been lengthy, but the truth is, Hokuma just wanted to stay with him. However, he should support his decision by not perpetuating the cycle at that point. The perception filter dropped. As he said, "I will always blindly be on your side, remember? Let us embrace the glory we couldn't back then. Grant the end to the ones locked here. For you." Yeah. Sounds like it wasn't the first time a failure had occurred. And the manager didn't seem to be fully aware of it. Although, well, I'll get to that when we cover that part of the lore. I don't want to give away too much. At least not this soon. Yeah. It was a betrayal, but look what happened. Well, that's Hokuma's lore more or less covered. But there's one more Sephira to go over before moving on. Until next time. Hail the rabbit!